Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the brand new Civivi Anaaki. Whenever the new Civivis dropped and I got this one, this was the one I was most excited about, but unfortunately that all took a quick turn. If you want to know why, stick around. This right here is a great compact EDC at 7.06 inches with a 2.98 inch clip point blade. Mine has a nice satin finish, and being these are under 3 inches, it's going to be legal in areas with 3 and under blade laws. You got a nice bulky tip there, and it's not too dainty. You do have a small little thumb ramp with some jimps there that does a good job of gripping the thumb. And your blade steel on this one is a Nitro V stainless steel. You got a good sharpening choil, thickens up about right here. So you're gonna have a good bit of sharpenings before it's gonna widen on you. And being this one is a nice low tip clip point, that tip is about in line with the center of the blade. It's easy to use that tip for fine detailed things, as well as piercing into a bag of potato chips. You also have a nice little scoop right here that is nice when you're in the saber grip right here. That top wedge comes down, but it doesn't come all the way down to that tip to thin it out. He left it with a little bit more meat behind it. Your blade stock on this one's coming in at 0.12, and this is where kind of got bummed out. I don't really understand it, but they went with a flat grind here, and it's not ridiculously thick behind the edge, but it's not as thin as we're used to seeing with Civivis. This one's coming in at around 21 thousandths behind the edge. So I was like, that's not bad. Near the tip, it thickens up because you have much smaller grind height there. It's around 25 thousandths behind the edge. But where the excitement was kind of sucked out of me, like I said, 21 thousandths isn't terrible. 25 is pretty thick, but the edge bevel on this thing from factory, my particular knife, it came 29 degrees per side. That is insane. 29 degrees. I don't like whenever they usually send theirs out with like a 22 to 24 degrees per side edge. But that's why I don't get why they didn't go with the hollow grind here. I was thinking it was going to be kind of like this one. I forgot the name of this one. Not the arc. This one has a nice deep hollow grind, aluminum, or, you know, like its brethren, the Ascend Cut Arc Blast with the nice hollow grind. You know, it's another compact knife just like that. I just don't get it. I think it would have been phenomenal with the hollow grind. They could have kept it a good bit thinner. But, you know, just as long as it has a nice sharp edge, it still should perform pretty well. Let's find out. As soon as I started cutting with this one, I noticed like it was starting to feel a little drag. And, you know, usually whenever I feel that, it has to do with the edge not being as sharp. And, you know, I used to get a good bit of Civivis that had over-polished edges where they were decently sharp. They just didn't have any bite. I can't tell whether this one has bite or not yet, but so far, like I said, it's definitely not the usual feeling I get whenever I'm testing Civivis. This one feels a little thick behind the edge. I'll actually measure it for the actual review, but just by feeling alone, I can actually feel that cliff where it falls off behind the edge. And then here, this is another place where you'll feel the bite if it has good bite. Now, it's not terrible, but it's definitely not as easy. I'm having to put more pressure into the wood. It's decently comfortable though. You know, it's a very compact knife. I wouldn't want to be doing this for a long period of time. I can kind of feel the top of that pocket clip when I'm really starting to bear down. It's not terrible, but it's definitely noticeable. I don't know. Hopefully I'm wrong, but it definitely feels like it's not it doesn't have the best edge. So this is where you'll notice right away. You see how it kind of slipped, and you know, it's getting through it. It's just not doing it very easy. You know, the easier it is the sharper that edge is, and the thinner the actual edge bevel is. You know, whenever you got a very obtuse edge bevel, it's not going to last as long, and I found through 1,000+ knives that I've tested that it requires much more force to get through. And it might be because it's dulling it quicker because of how obtuse it is. I don't know. Right after I finished the wood, I had to go check the geometry on this one. It's not terrible. The thickness behind the edge is like, I think it's 21 thousandths. But what I was kind of shocked on is that the edge bevel on this one is set at 29 degrees per side. I really hope I got a one off there, but man, 24 degrees, that's their normal. 22, 24, that's already, in my opinion, way too thick. But I understand why most companies do that. They don't want to get a ton of returns because they're scared people are going to do something stupid with their knives. But 29 degrees, that is super thick, and being that this one's not super thin behind the edge, every single time I sharpen it, that thickness is going to get thicker and thicker, and it's going to get thicker rapidly. So, I don't know. I was excited. I was way more excited when I first got this one than I am now. And, it's okay. I don't have to like every knife. And Civivi, I like way more than I don't like. So, I call that a win. And this one's not terrible, but just not for me. Well, that was another thing. The edge, I'm guessing, was a little over polished. I tried to strop it, a little bit to give it a little bit better of a chance. But you also have that super obtuse bevel in mind. It just didn't perform well. If I'm going to get a knife like this, especially what these are going for, I would want it to have a slicier edge on it. It's not a hard use knife by any means. They went through all the trouble to do all this intricate milling. I just don't understand. I don't get it. Now, as long as you keep it nice and sharp, it's going to perform pretty darn good. But I just want you to know, if you do pick it up, it's going to get thicker and thicker every single time you sharpen it. If you try to lay that edge bevel back, it's going to get thick rapidly, especially toward the tip right there. Let's close it up. Take a look at the deployment on this one. So you have a minimal flipper tab that is right in front of that pivot. Good grippy jimping there. Nice action. Not the best action, but nice action. You can use that thumb hole. Works well. I can reverse flick it. I can slow roll it. It is snappy and it is smooth, but I have to make sure this thing's pressed as far as it can go to have that smooth action. It wants to catch, and I'm guessing it's because it's got a lighter blade to it. I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me really any. But it's snappy enough. You can do a light switch. You can load up, do a push button, but the light switch, in my opinion, is much more comfortable, much more natural feeling. But being it's riding on cage ceramic bearings, it's got a nice smooth action. Once you remove that lock, pushing it out of the way, it's a pretty much frictionless knife. Now these scales are very interesting. These are aluminum. You have multi-layered milling here. So they have this line that kind of gives it like an inlay look, in my opinion. And you have all these little windows that go into other windows underneath it, and that's just behind it. See that? So they had to mill this side and do the top portion, then they flipped it over and then milled the other side, kind of staggered to give it that look, making this one super lightweight at 2.17 ounces. So that was, another reason why I was super excited about it, because I was like, man, this could be a great EDC knife. It's going to be a super slicey little guy, but they can't all be winners. And I think Civivi's had probably one of the best track records of knives that I've reviewed. So, I'm bound to get one that I just don't love. You may like this one, but, I prefer a good performer over a heavier user. And I just don't think this was meant to be a heavier user. But I do like this. I know some people are not going to like it because it's got holes everywhere. I'm good with it or without it. Definitely interesting. You have Torx TA construction throughout. Only T6 you have is for this pocket clip. I wish I would have inset that clip into the aluminum. However, they countersink the screws and they round over the front, so I haven't had any issues. Now, I was worried about these cutouts, but they did sit the clip, I'll flip it over, on this portion right here. And that's why they left it. You see, none of the other ones had that. They split this one to make two smaller ones so the clip sits on top of it. I didn't have any issues with this going in and out of my pocket. And it sits fairly deep. You just have this little portion right there sticking up. Not bad. And then if you want to tie a lanyard, they have a little pin right here that you can tie a lanyard to that's in between these two standoffs. You have flow-through construction. That's keeping the weight down even more on this one. Your button lock is plenty strong enough. I have not had a Civivi button lock fail on me. They have a nice recess spot for that button, so you have to make sure to push it below that to disengage that lock. That's what you want to see, so you don't accidentally put your finger on and disengage it. You got to be deliberate about it. The blade centering is perfection right down the pipe. The lockup, I gotta say, you know, a lot of times I'll get a button lock and they got some side-to-side movement or just kind of sloppy feeling. This is a smaller knife. This thing is a bank vault. I mean, super tight lockup. Now for some quick size comparisons. It's a little smaller than the Civivi Cubit, and it's very similar in overall length to the Syncut Arc Blast. It's a good bit smaller than the Ontario Rat 1, and it's just a hair shorter than the Ontario Rat 2. And lastly, it's a little bit smaller than the QSP Penguin, and it's just about identical in length to the Civivi Elementum 2 button lock. Now, being that no knife's perfect, what are my nitpicks complaints? I think we discussed them all. I think this one would have been a much better knife with a hollow grind on it, just so you could thin it out some more. And I never, ever like seeing, especially on a folding knife, a bevel, an edge bevel that's over 22 degrees, 24 degrees. You know, that's what they usually like to say, 22, 24 degrees. But 29 degrees is just stupid. Maybe I just got a lemon. Hopefully I did. Y'all let me know in the comments. If you sharpen yours up and you know what the angle is, what was yours? Even if it was done, you know, thinner, I still think a hollow grind would have made more sense here. Maybe they were worried about this tip being too thin. I don't know. But, you know, got super excited about it. And after doing the testing, you know, and it wasn't super sharp, this one was not the most comfortable to use because whenever it's not super sharp, I'm having to really put a lot of pressure into it. Now, I know I can remedy that by putting my own edge on it, and I definitely will. And I'll try to lay it back a good bit, but I don't want my bevel to be a 1/4 inch up the blade. So I don't know. We'll see. What I usually do is I'll lay it, say I'll start, being it's at 29, I will drop it 2 degrees and set that bevel and see what it looks like, and then continue to work my way up from there. Also, I think it would have been nice to have the clip inset into the aluminum, especially at this price point. And it would have been nice to have T8 hardware there as well. And I just mentioned it, the last thing, I guess, the price point. You know, I understand why they were that much, because you have tons of milling here. They use Nitro V, that usually is a little bit more premium to them than 14C. I definitely think it's a well-made knife. You know, it just, I guess whenever you're expecting something and you're really hoping for something and it's not that, then it kind of takes the excitement away from it, at least for me, especially. I review a lot of knives, and, you know, I'm accustomed to having those super slicey blades from Civivi Knives. And like I said, hopefully I just got a lemon. So y'all check out the comments below, see if, you know, maybe mine just came that way. It's a review sample. Maybe it was sent out early before, I don't know. These come in at $89.25. I think that's pretty steep, but, you know, I don't think it's too crazy. That requires a pass on the front. Then they all have to be flipped over. So it's an extra step completely, and time equals money. So, of course, if nothing I talked about was a deal breaker for you, then yeah, I could recommend it. It's a well-built knife. It's got good action. I think it's a good looking knife. You got a versatile blade here. You know, my medium-sized hands, I still get a nice 4-finger grip. If you have large, extra large hands, this one's probably going to be a little small for you. So, if this one does it for you, I will link it down below in the description, along with the other new released Civivi knives that went along with this one, like the 6 gil. And I think there was also some kitchen knives, if I remember seeing them on Blade HQ. I will link all that down below. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave those down below, and I'll do my best to get back with you. I hope every single one of y'all is having a fantastic, fantastic day. And remember, keep those blades sharp, smile more.